Richard Rawlings, the towering figure behind Gas Monkey Garage and the famed face of Fast and Loud, had just received news that would shatter the very foundation of his public persona. The verdict had been handed down and the effect was immediate, a life-altering blow delivered in a sterile courtroom surrounded by reporters, federal agents, and stunned onlookers. As Judge Alanier Simmons announced the sentence, 15 years in federal prison with no chance of parole for the first 10, Rawlings sat motionless, his once slicked-back hair now disheveled, his shirt wrinkled from weeks of trial tension. The blow, the weight of the moment, bore down on him until he collapsed, crumpling face-first into the courtroom table before sliding to the floor. Gasps erupted. His ex-wife covered her mouth in horror. Dennis Collins, his longtime friend, rushed forward instinctively but was stopped by stern-faced security officers. Emergency responders flooded the courtroom, working desperately for 7 agonizing minutes. When Rawlings finally stirred, the color had drained from his face. Instead of being escorted away in cuffs, he was wheeled out on a stretcher, oxygen mask strapped across his face, a far cry from the commanding showman fans had come to know. Veteran courthouse officer Raymond Wilkins, a man who had seen his fair share of celebrity meltdowns, summed it up chillingly: when that sentence drops and you realize your life is over, something inside just snaps. And snap it did. For more than a decade, Rawlings was a cultural icon, a symbol of swagger, speed, and showmanship. But the trial, which spanned 3 intense weeks, revealed a side of him that fans never saw coming. It all started innocuously enough in late 2023. A routine IRS audit into Gas Monkey Garage unearthed a few minor discrepancies, nothing unusual at first. But those discrepancies led to questions, and the deeper investigators looked, the more tangled and suspicious things became. Brick by brick, the empire Rawlings had built began to come apart. What started as suspected tax issues soon exposed something much darker. The audit revealed a complicated web of irregularities, strange debt patterns, suspicious overseas bank accounts, and personal expenses hidden within business records. According to Martinez Suarez, a retired IRS investigator, the clues were classic signs of financial misdeeds. But what they found next was beyond anything anyone expected. Prosecutors discovered what they described as one of the most sophisticated VIN fraud operations in the automotive world. Over the course of nearly 8 years, Rawlings had allegedly overseen the systematic alteration of vehicle identification numbers on dozens of classic cars sold through Gas Monkey Garage. These weren't just slip-ups in paperwork. This was fraud at an industrial scale. Evidence suggested that many of the rare cars featured on his TV show were actually standard models disguised with counterfeit VINs and fabricated documents. These modified vehicles, sold at premium prices, netted Rawlings and his team millions in illegal profits. Jurors watched footage from Fast and Loud in which Rawlings enthusiastically showcased unicorn finds, classic cars so rare they bordered on the mythical. The prosecution juxtaposed those clips with expert testimony explaining how statistically improbable it would be to discover so many of these treasures in such a short span. Something wasn't right. The deception extended beyond just the cars themselves. Assistant U.S. Attorney Caroline Morales revealed that Rawlings had created entire fictional backstories for these vehicles, forged dealer paperwork, faked build sheets, and counterfeit provenance documents that fooled even seasoned car collectors. Some of these cars were sold internationally, invoking federal wire fraud statutes that carried harsher penalties. Perhaps the most damning testimonies came from inside his own garage. 3 former employees revealed the existence of a hidden section of the shop equipped with specialized tools for VIN alterations. This area, they claimed, was off-limits during filming and accessible only to Rawlings and a select few. Prosecutor Daniel Keller drove the point home in closing arguments, asserting that what the public believed was a legitimate restoration business was actually a front for a well-orchestrated scam. Rawlings' legal team tried to paint a different picture. They described him as a passionate car enthusiast who may have made mistakes in documentation but never intended to deceive. Defense attorney James Westfield argued that classic car valuation was inherently subjective and that Rawlings had always operated in good faith. But the evidence overwhelmed their arguments. But the scheme's downfall came when Rawlings got too ambitious. As his fame grew, he targeted increasingly valuable cars. The tipping point was a 1967 Shelby GT 500, allegedly sold for $1.2 to $2 million to a wealthy European collector. When the buyer tried to insure it, the truth emerged: it was just a modified Mustang worth less than $200,000. The collector's video testimony during trial was heartbreaking. He described his admiration for Rawlings and how he felt betrayed. Prosecutors played recordings in which Rawlings personally vouched for the car's authenticity, sealing the wire fraud charges. The scandal rocked the collector community. Experts testified that the case raised doubts about the authenticity of many high-profile vehicles. Several auction houses quickly announced they would re-verify any car linked to Rawlings or Gas Monkey Garage. The damage to the industry's credibility was incalculable. The fallout was swift. Discovery Network severed all ties and began pulling episodes of Fast and Loud from their platforms. The once revered brand collapsed in a matter of days. For fans, it was a gut-wrenching revelation. The man they had cheered on for years, the bold, brash, beer-chugging, car-flipping maverick, was now just another cautionary tale.